As salespeople, we all know the importance of going deep on pain during the discovery process, but most people aren't going deep enough. And there's really two reasons for that. So I wanted to hop on here and go over what those reasons are and what you can do about it and what's possible for you on the other side once this gets fixed. The first reason is that there's simply just not enough pain. Now, this doesn't happen very often. It's a very rare thing, actually. Most people have underlying pain that they're just not aware of. But every once in a while, you'll get someone that it's just more of a nice to have, right? I just actually got off a sales call where this was the case, where she came in and after a few minutes of peeling back the layers and trying to find a emotional pain underneath the surface, there really wasn't much there. It really was just a nice to have for her. So I immediately shifted into outcome and helping her see the vision for what she actually wanted in her life versus the things that she didn't want. Because she's happy with her career, happy with her life. There wasn't anything glaringly obvious from a pain perspective. So we started digging into outcomes. And this allowed her to start opening up and be a little bit more vulnerable. And it turns out there's a really deep emotional connection to an outcome and a vision that she had. She wants to take care of her family. She wants to be able to travel. She wants to be able to live life on her terms, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is where we were able to get to the emotional attachment, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing when we're digging for pain, is we're looking to connect their problems or their outcomes to an emotion, because people don't buy or make purchase decisions based on logic alone. There needs to be an emotional tie to it. When you don't find that emotional layer, that's when you start having to address all kinds of objections at the end of the call. So the best way to keep from handling those objections and to make it as smooth a call as possible with the least amount of friction is to be able to find that emotional layer. So that's number one. If you can't do it through pain, find the outcome and the vision. Now, the thing that's most common and that's going to show up most often for you is number two. And this has nothing to do with the prospect. This has everything to do with your own emotional capacity to sit in an uncomfortable conversation and ask hard questions. This is the thing that I see time and time again with the people that I work with that trips them up and causes these sales calls to be a lot harder than they need to be. When you're not able to find the pain and go deeper, layers deeper, then you end up in a situation where you're having to either over-explain yourself, you're handling objections that could have been pre-handled beforehand, and then you're running into all this resistance at the end of the call, trying to talk somebody into buying your thing instead of it just being the natural next step. So how do you create emotional capacity? Well, when you're in this situation where you've done the training, you know the questions to ask, you know when to ask them, you've probably rehearsed it, done role plays, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're actually in front of somebody who's having an emotional experience, there's real stakes on the line, and there's real tension, that's when things get rough for the sales rep, or it can. That's when you start to feel resistance. And when we feel that resistance, we tend to rush past things, skip over questions, and just move to a part of the call that you're a lot more comfortable with. This does a disservice to the person in front of you and to yourself as well. Because as professional salespeople, our role here is to help people make better decisions for their lives, right? Help solve their painful problems, help get them to their dream outcomes. But we can't do that if we don't fully understand what's going on underneath the surface. And most of the time, they don't understand it either. So it's our job to help bring that out of them, help them see the things that they're not aware of yet. So if you start to feel resistance during this phase, the number one thing that you can do to make this a smoother process is to do the inner work necessary to create more emotional capacity for yourself so that you have the ability to hold space while someone can be vulnerable with you and go through their own experience. They're already going to have a lot of resistance showing up for them. If you're asking tough questions, they're going to feel awkward or frustrated or unsafe or anything else based on their programming, right? In a lot of cases, maybe they haven't been asked questions like these before. Maybe they've never thought about the deeper layers of their own life. And so it can be a very vulnerable and intimate conversation. And in order to have that, you need to be somebody who has the space to hold that and doesn't bring your own anxiety and nervousness to the call. This is another form of the shadow rep popping up, right? Any of that resistance that you feel bubbling up in these situations stems from a program that was installed as a kid, and it's just been running in the background ever since. And you may brush it off as your personality or a limitation or a host of other things. All it is a underlying program that can simply just be rewired into something that's more helpful for you instead of harming you. Once you're able to do this, sales calls become a lot easier because you're not handling objections that were already pre-handled. Everything feels in alignment. You're able to help them naturally to the next step, and it just feels a lot better. It feels good for them, it feels good for you, and even if they don't end up moving forward with the sale right away, they've gotten a lot of value out of being able to go deeper into themselves and understand what's actually running underneath the surface. So the first step here is to become aware. We can't change the things that we're not aware of. So on your next call, take some time and just notice during this phase of discovery when you are looking for pain, ask a couple extra questions. Go a couple layers deeper and notice if there's any resistance that comes up in you when doing that. If so, reflect on that afterwards. Once we have identified what's going on internally during these moments, then we can connect that back to one of these programs that we're running as a kid, whether it's a connection program, a security program, or a recognition program. It's typically one of those three. Once we've identified the program, then we can work to rewire it and open up space and create that emotional capacity that we're looking for. There is a free tool that I built that I'll link below that helps you with the first step of this, helps you unlock and uncover what that program that's running underneath looks like. That way, once you have the awareness, you can start to work on this on your own and really make a shift. I had a client that did this work, and in her first month ended up with around a 60% close rate. The average on her team at the time is about 20%. She was great. She knew exactly what to do and when to do it. She was able to handle objections, and she was a really good rep and closed a lot of deals, but she was still hitting this resistance and not stepping into her full potential because she wasn't able to go deep and sit in this tension that can come with these deeper conversations. So once we shifted things for her, created the emotional capacity, she didn't have to start doing anything different. She didn't need to get on another offer. She didn't need more leads. She didn't need to work longer hours. She became a lot more efficient with the work that she was doing and started closing more deals, ended up having one of the biggest months of her career. So keep this in mind. This really is like the lowest hanging fruit for a lot of people. If you feel that resistance, start to become aware of it and reach out if you need any help. Peace.